Alrighty, thank you everyone for joining today's session. Today's session is entitled Supports and Resources for Elders and Adults with Disabilities. And our presenters with us today are Carol Cooper Driscoll, Disability Law Center of Virginia, Tamar Goodale, Long-Term Care Ombudsman, Linda Hamrick, Department of Aging and Rehabilitation Services, or DARS, and Medicaid Managed Care Manager, Cindy Smith, the Wise County DSS Adult Protective Services and Family Services Specialist. Before we get started, there are a few housekeeping rules that we'd like to address. Speakers, please remember that we are using live captioning and interpreting services. So when you first introduce yourself today, whether it be as a speaker or a participant later on, please include a physical description of yourself and your preferred pronouns, such as, my name is 𝐲𝐤𝐬𝐀𝐛�𥗐𝐬𝐿. I am a white woman with straight brown hair and glasses. I'm wearing a teal floral blouse and have the dLCV Summit blue background. My preferred pronouns are she, her. This will help provide context for the attendees who may be blind or vision impaired, and will also help our interpreters and captioners locate who is speaking on the screen. Please stay muted at all times unless you're the speaker, and please hold all questions until the end. We do have a chat box that will be moderated by me throughout the session, and the chat box is used for questions or as directed by the session speaker. At the end of each session, I will select and read some of the questions from the box. If your question is chosen, you may take yourself off of mute and ask your question, or simply type the question in the question box. So thank you everyone for attending today, and I will give it over to Carol to start us off.
Welcome. I'm Carol Driscoll, an advocate with the Disability Law Center of Virginia, and we're so glad that you've joined us today. I am a white female. I have short, brown, graying hair. I'm an older lady. I have the dLCV Summit background, and I have on a white jacket and a black and white striped dress. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Disability Law Center of Virginia, what we do, and particularly geared to older adults and adults with disabilities. Our mission at the Disability Law Center is to advance independence, choice, and self-determination, protect legal, human, and civil rights, and eliminate abuse, neglect, and discrimination of people with disabilities through zealous and uncompromising legal advocacy and representation. And our vision is we envision a Commonwealth free of legal barriers for individuals with disabilities. And I forgot to tell you my pronouns, which are she and her. Basically, the history, we used to be part of state government, and we were called VOPA, Virginia Office of Protection and Advocacy. In October of 2013, we became a nonprofit, and were designated as Virginia's Protection and Advocacy System. And we have goals and objectives that we create each year to help guide our work. Now, protection and advocacy, that's a federally mandated program to provide legal representation and advocacy service to people with disabilities. And so we do information and referral. Anyone who calls us is going to get information and a referral. We do advocacy assistance, legal representation in some situations. We monitor and investigate facilities. That's one of the things that I get involved with. And we provide education and outreach through our annual summit, which is one example. We work according to laws and grants, and they're listed here. They deal with things with people with developmental disabilities, people with mental illness, Social Security beneficiaries, which is our Rep Payee unit, voting access, assistive technology, client assistance program, which is CAP, individual rights, and traumatic brain injury. Now, We also have units at dLCV, and this is going to change some starting October 1st. We go by the federal calendar, but our units right now is the institutional rights unit. That's the one that I'm on. And we cover state psychiatric hospitals, private psychiatric hospitals, nursing homes, assisted livings. Then we've got the community's rights unit. That's for people in the community, and also would include group homes. Fit team, that's something that helps us internally. Resources and vocational access, they get involved with client assistance program, working with DARS, voting and assistive technology, volunteer and community outreach. That's again more internally, and the children's advocacy unit. Now, as a protection and advocacy agency, we have a unique access authority. So in a facility, we have the authority to reasonable unaccompanied access inside a facility, providing care or treatment in any area that a resident might access. So for example, when I go to the state psychiatric hospitals that I cover, for example, 𝐲𝐸𝐬𝐀𝐙𝐢𝐿 Geriatric Hospital, when I check in, I'm given a key fob. So I am able to open all the doors, go in the bathrooms, that type of stuff. So I have full access. We also have access to records. We can access the records of individuals with disabilities if they consent, if they're deceased, or if their whereabouts are unknown, or if their guardian fails to act on their behalf, and we have probable cause to believe the health or safety of the individuals in serious immediate jeopardy. And records is something we may use if we're doing an investigation. And then, of course, the authority to speak privately to people with disabilities. Quickly, some of the cases we do not assist with: criminal cases, family law and custody cases, divorce, civil suits, bankruptcy, tax issues, workers' compensation cases, assisted suicide, property disputes, and consumer protection cases. The way that you get in touch with us is that Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you can call from 8:30 to 4. And what'll happen is someone will do an intake. They'll get your information. They'll ask you a bunch of questions for demographic reasons, and get an idea of why you're calling. If they're able, they'll provide you with some information and referral, and then possible referral to a subject matter expert. And that's somebody who, let's say you're calling about a nursing home. I'm the subject matter expert for long-term care, so you would get referred to me. A better way and more preferred way to access us, especially if you have internet access and you're comfortable on the computer, is to get our Get Help form. The link is there. That way you can do that 24 hours a day. It's submitted, it's reviewed, and it's submitted to the person who's going to be able to help you. Just some of the things we do that are of interest to older adults, particularly. We help with alternatives to guardianship, which is supportive decision-making. We can assist with reversing guardianship, if applicable and appropriate. Issues with the representative payee, and that would include if the representative payee is the facility, a person, or an organization. Issues with Social Security programs, abuse and neglect in facilities. Again, that would be all facilities, and voting access. And that is our information. And now I am going to turn it over to Linda Hamrick.
Thank you, Carol, and good morning, everyone. I'm Linda Hamrick, and I'm the Medicaid Managed Care Advocate Manager in the Department for Aging and Rehabilitative Services, specifically located within our Ombudsman unit. And we have someone later in our presentation here who's going to be explaining about the role and the assistance provided by Ombudsman. I am a white female, older with curly gray hair. Today I'm wearing a black and white shirt and a black jacket. And my preferred pronouns are she and her, and behind me is just a white wall. So, all right, Carol, thank you. So, our team is we serve as independent advocates for individuals who are in Medicaid managed care plans. And as I said, we're part of the long-term care ombudsman's office within the Virginia Department for Aging and Rehabilitative Services. We're a team of 6, and we do provide services statewide. So some of the advocates are located in Richmond. We have one out in Southwest Virginia, one in Tidewater, and any of those can assist with a case anywhere in Virginia. And the key word I want to emphasize here is the independent, because we are not part of a health plan, we're not part of the state Medicaid agency and so forth. So our role is to stand outside, so to speak, and to help with the advocacy for individuals. So next slide, please. Okay, so here's the essence of our services, and then following that, I'm going to give you just some case examples to help bring that closer to what happens on a day-to-day basis. So our advocate team assists individuals who live in the community, in nursing homes, assisted living facilities, or other group settings. And as far as the majority of the individuals that we serve are in the community. And we receive calls from a variety of services, some of are a variety of agencies, some of which are listed here, such as our area agencies on aging and legal networks, Department of Social Services. Our number is also listed when individuals get an adverse benefit determination notice, and I'll talk about those in just a second when we get to grievances and appeals. And we are also, just because of working again with some of our wonderful partners here, such as the Disability Law Center and Social Services and our local ombudsman and so forth, we're able to receive those calls and then work to assist with the problem. So to go down a brief summary of what we do, the first, like Carol said, there's certainly a role for information and system navigation and referrals to the appropriate resources. And so because managed care Medicaid has many types of processes and systems and so forth, sometimes it's a matter of just helping get someone to the right place, such as another example might be, I want to, how do I process or file a Medicaid application? So that would be a referral to the proper resources. And sometimes, again, helping people just navigate the system that will help to address their question. So sometimes that is what a person needs. They say, thank you, and I'll take it from here now that I have the information. The majority, however, come in the next categories, which are assisting with understanding and accessing members' rights. And some of those rights are just the right for individuals to participate in their plan of care, to actively participate so that their voice is being heard. Or if the care coordinator who they have is not meeting their needs or hard to get in contact with, whatever it might be, that they can change their care coordinators. They can change their health plans for different reasons besides maybe during an open enrollment period. So the next area here, the problem resolution regarding accessing member benefits, that is the area in which, of course, we spend most of our time. And that can be a whole array of issues that come up for individuals. I think that, some of the more common ones, but I'm really going to talk in depth when I do case examples here in just a minute. But some of the more common ones might be that they're trying to obtain some durable medical equipment or maybe an environmental modification, getting a prescription covered, finding out who their care coordinator is, etc. So again, more on that in just a moment. And then we do provide assistance with filing grievances and appeals, and that's at both levels. The initial appeal is with a managed care organization when someone gets that adverse benefit notification that says, for example, you were getting 56 hours of personal care and now you're only going to get 24. And so that is an appealable action through the health plan first, and then on to DMAS for an independent review in a state fair hearing. And we provide assistance throughout those processes. And also when an individual needs to file a grievance, so separate than an appeal, the grievance, something has gone wrong with the health plan, with a provider, etc. And then right now we're getting a lot of calls regarding individuals who have gotten a notice that their Medicaid is being termed for one reason or another. And so we are actively getting them to the right resources, finding out where their Medicaid, what the status of their Medicaid may be. So next slide, please. And I'm just going to give a couple case examples here. So, because I think I'm at my time, but one call that we get often is, I can't get my attendance paid. So they've been screened as eligible for personal care and so forth, but they're having a hard time getting the attendant paid. And there can be a whole array of reasons behind that. And so that takes some work on the advocate's part to get that straight. Thank you. And so another type of case example is that my brother was released from the hospital and he needs various medications, and the pharmacy says they don't take Medicaid. How's he going to get his medicine? And so that one necessitated the pharmacy department at the health plan speaking to the local pharmacist to get the billing straight. Or we get calls when individuals are being discharged. We're working on one currently where an individual is being told that they need to leave the hospital, but there are some serious behavioral challenges, and it's very difficult to find a facility that will take the individual. So I think I will stop there just to be respectful of others' time. And so the last slide, this is my contact information. And so I can be reached at 804-663-7821. And so I believe that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Linda. Our
Sure.
next speaker is going to be Cindy Smith.
Good morning, almost good afternoon, but my name is Cindy Smith. I'm with Wise County Department of Social Services, Adult Protective Service. I'm a family special service specialist number 4. I am a white older woman wearing a black shirt with the word inspire written on it. And I prefer the pronouns she and her. I am in my office at Wise County Department of Social Services at this time. Okay, Carol, here we go. Adult Protective Service is very dear to my heart. I love to help people, and this is one way that I'm able to do so. APS investigates reports of abuse, neglect, exploitation of adults 60 years of age and older, and incapacitated adults ages 18 and older. We also provide service for individuals that from health, housing, social and legal services, and we try to stop or prevent the mistreatment of abuse, neglect, or exploitation. Some of the services that we may offer are home-based care, transportation, adult daycare, adult foster care, long-term care placement, assisted living placement, and nutritional services, and legal intervention if necessary. Next slide, please. Now, how can you make a report? You contact your local Department of Social Services. You make sure to provide the following information. And remember, you do not have to provide your name or a number or address or anything. You can be anonymous. But we must have the adult's name, age, date of birth, physical address, or any other identifying information about the person that you're making the report on. And why is the individual at risk? Are they at risk of abuse, self-neglect, neglect, or exploitation? And please describe the situation that they're in, and if there's any kind of identifiers of the abuser or perpetrator, and if there's any other dangers in the home. Example, maybe a biting dog or a weak porch that someone may fall through if they walk through, or if it's a hoarded house and the weight of the items in the house has just made the home unsafe. Next slide, please. There are certain people that are mandated reporters for APS, and that's any person licensed, certified, or registered by the health regulatory boards. And there's only one exception, and that is the Board of Veterinarians. Any mental health services provider is mandated. Any emergency medical services certified by the Board of Health are mandated. Any guardian or conservator of an adult, any person employed or contracted with a public or private or facility and working with an adults in administrative, supportive, or direct care capacity. Any person providing full or intimate or occasional care to an adult for compensation, including companion, chore, homemaker, personal care workers. And lastly, any law enforcement officer must report. In the state fiscal year of 2021, there was 39,185 cases reported of adult abuse, neglect, and or exploitation by local departments of social services. And 50% of those were founded. As you see at the graph, most of it was self-neglect. Next slide, please. APS has a code of ethics. We are not the bad guy. A lot of people think that we go in and take people from their home and place them in a nursing home, but that is the last resort. We have to make sure that everyone is safe in their home. People do better in their home, but they have to have certain things to make certain that their everyday life is safe and they can live that way. The guiding value of APS is every action taken by APS must balance the duty to protect the safety of the vulnerable adult with adult's right to self-determinate. If they have the capacity, they can make the decision whether to accept services or live in the home environment that others may not agree with. The principle of APS is adults have the right to be safe. They have the right to retain all their civil and constitutional rights. Adults have the right to make decisions that do not conform with social norms as long as the decisions do not harm others. And adults have the right to accept or refuse our services. Next slide. But how can APS help? We refer to community resources. If they need a porch, if they need a ramp, if they need the roof repaired, if they need medical services, if they need medicine, we can send them out to other resources that will help them. Now, we can also place them in facilities, but that is if they need it or if they request it. Home-based services, we can help contact family members. We can obtain medical care. If they need transportation, we can provide that to their doctors. We can provide protective orders, and we refer to law enforcement when it's like exploitation or abuse. And the last is any financial exploitation of the endangered adult. What can we not do? We cannot force services on a person who has the capacity to consent or deny. If they do not want it, we cannot make them. We cannot involuntarily remove someone from their home. We cannot provide services if there's no resources available. And we cannot enforce the law. We are not law enforcement. And we cannot reveal the identity of a reporter without a court order. But the main thing is, when I tell my people, when I train my unit, I tell them never tell someone something that you cannot deliver. Don't promise them something that you can't do. Because there's sometimes you say, I'll be there, and there's times that you cannot be there. Next slide is our APS hotline. There's call your local Department of Social Services, or here is the hotline number. It's 888-832-3868. If you see any adult or any elderly adult that needs assistance, please call your local Department of Social Services. We're there to help. We're not there to hurt anyone or take them out of their home. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. Our next speaker is Tamar Goodale, and she is from the Office of the Long-Term Care Ombudsman.
Thank you, Carol. My name is Tamar Goodale. I prefer the pronouns she and her. I am a white woman with blonde hair, wearing glasses, and a black shirt with a background that's essentially white and curtainy. So I am a long-term care ombudsman. That means I support, I advocate for, and I answer questions in regard to long-term care. That includes nursing homes, rehab, assisted living, the PACE program, hospice care, home health, and some adult care facilities. I noticed somebody earlier asked about veterans homes. I can say, as far as the ombudsman, if that veterans facility is a licensed nursing home, assisted living, then absolutely the ombudsman would include that within our purview. So whether somebody is already a part of one of these entities or they simply have questions about them, you can contact the ombudsman. Sometimes people reach out because they think I myself or my loved one probably has long-term care in his or her future. And they want to know, what are the options in this area? What's a list of nursing homes? How do you pay for assisted living? What payer sources do they take? There's so many good questions that people should start asking early. And the long-term care ombudsman is a person you can go to for some answers. The long-term care ombudsman program is part of the state's Department of Aging and Rehabilitative Services. So we are free of charge. I saw in the chat somebody asked if it is only for low income. We do not have any sort of income barrier. Our only threshold, if you even call it that, is that it touches on long-term care. But as I said, you don't have to be a client of it at the moment to reach out to the ombudsman. So there is a local long-term care ombudsman in every planning district in Virginia. I happen to cover Planning District 10, which is the Charlottesville and Albemarle area and the surrounding counties. But if you would like to find your local long-term care ombudsman, you can go to the website that is on the screen right now, elderrights.virginia.gov. It's a very user-friendly site that has both a map and a drop-down option for finding your ombudsman. So how does it work? How do you utilize an ombudsman? We are pretty low barrier. You simply call the ombudsman in your area or email us and let us know what the problem is. We will listen. We will ask a lot of questions to try to better understand the situation. And then we will offer advice for solutions. We are resolution oriented. So we're not, unfortunately, sometimes we have no punitive ability. We cannot levy fines or any other technique to long-term care, but we do attempt to resolve the problem. So we will offer a variety of options based on what the state and federal regulations might offer, our own experience, possibly with that particular facility that you may be having problems with, and any other factors. And we will lay those out and allow the resident or resident's legal decision maker to decide what, if any, recourse they want us to help with. We are completely resident driven. And that means that if someone contacts us and we give a list of options for solution, they have the right to choose, which one, and we are bound to follow their wishes. Or they can say, I've changed my mind, I don't want to do anything, and we take no action. We offer complete confidentiality. So when someone reaches out to us, they can do so knowing that nothing they tell us will be repeated without consent, and no action will be taken without consent. And that action can look like anything from simply having a conversation with members of maybe a nursing home, an assisted living, or other facility, to having maybe a more formal meeting with a variety of the interdisciplinary team, to bringing in partners such as some of the ones here today, like APS or the Disability Law Center or the Managed Care Program. So we have a whole, before we get up to licensing and statewide entities. So runs the gamut of what we do to resolve problems. But like I said, it's always what the individual at the heart of the complaint wishes us to do. As far as the types of cases we take, it's pretty much anything. There's no threshold. We do not cover only certain topics. Any issue that somebody has within the long-term care system is usually ripe for an ombudsman's help. The most common cases we get are care issues. Long waits for call bell response time, not getting assistance with toileting, medication administration problems, improper discharges. Those are a lot of what we see, but by no means the extent. Food is one I hear a lot of complaints about, somebody not getting their preferred meals, or it doesn't meet their dietary health needs, or even, and I don't want to make light of this because it's very important, how somebody is spoken to, respect. So a lot of people in long-term care tell me that staff members speak to them very rudely and disrespectfully, and that's certainly something that we take seriously and also attempt to resolve. So it really does run the gamut, and I encourage anybody who has questions about long-term care, problems within the long-term care system, to absolutely reach out to your ombudsman. Like I said, we are low barrier. You just pick up the phone or email, and we do offer that confidentiality and ability to say that we will not do anything without consent. So there's really no harm or risk in making that initial contact with the ombudsman. So I may be a little ahead of time, but if anyone, I know there's some questions that have been coming in, and I definitely want to make sure that we allow time for the people who are here today to ask the questions that they may have of our program. So I'm going to stop there.
All right, thank you so much, Tamar, and for all of our presenters. So we do have a few questions in the chat that I think some were already addressed during the presentation. But we have a question from Carol to Cindy. What is self-neglect defined as?
Okay, self-neglect, I actually had there's a code of Virginia. It's 63.2-1603. It is when they're living in a circumstance that he or she is not able to provide for himself or herself and is not able to provide service necessary to maintain physical or mental health, and its failure to such necessary services impairs or threatens his own well-being. That means if someone, for example, if someone is elderly and cannot drive, but they need transportation to the grocery store, the first initial, we will take them ourselves. We'll make sure that they have food and stocked up. We will give them resources of the local food banks, and also the transportation that is free right now in our area, that they will pick them up for no charge, take them to any store they wish, and bring them back home. And the driver will assist carrying the groceries to their home.
Thank you, Cindy. I wanted to also address some of the questions that were in the chat that Tamar referenced. We, as far as veterans care homes, that is an area that we would look into. Recently, we have been doing a ALF, assisted living facility project, and we did visit one of those ALFs. As also regarding low income, we provide our services, information, and referral to anyone regardless of their income level.
Thank you so much, Cindy, and thank you so much, Carol. Some other questions that are coming up in the chat. One from Paul. Paul, would you like the opportunity to speak, or can I read the question aloud? All right, I'm going to go ahead and ask it. So Paul asks, we have a huge need for deaf and hard of hearing people to have access to nursing homes and senior living communities without being discriminated. What resource might you have for them?
I'm sorry, I'll let you go first, Carol.
Okay. We do get involved with that at the Disability Law Center of Virginia. We have received some inquiries, complaints about residents not being able to access their communication devices, and that's something that we get involved with. If we find that there is an issue, it's something that we possibly would investigate ourselves or possibly refer it out to the applicable long-term care ombudsman.
And to add on to that, I'm not sure if the problem that's being experienced is discrimination prior to being admitted, which probably is a piece of it, and that's harder to ascertain sometimes. But certainly, I'm sure there are resources for that piece of it. If you're talking about services once they are in the long-term care, as Carol said, absolutely contact the ombudsman. Nursing homes in particular are federally required to meet the needs of every resident that they admit. So if somebody's there who is hard of hearing, is deaf, or in any way disabled, then there has to be somebody to meet that need, whatever that looks like. It can be that the nursing home has to bring in an interpreter, has to provide other means of communicating with them. And that holds true for anyone who English may not be their first language or they're not proficient in it. So we will definitely do our best to hold them responsible and accountable for what they are legally required to do for those individuals.
And I just want to put, we're from a small area, but we have a local college and we have a professor who does do the sign language. And so we usually get them if we need an interpreter. We use all of our resources that we can that's local.
And I will just add also that if the individual is in a Medicaid managed care plan, then the care coordinator for that individual also can be engaged to help to assure that that individual has what he or she needs. And sometimes the care coordinators work directly with the ombudsman, for example, to try to enhance the support and bring in as many resources as possible.
Thank you all so much. Our next question is from Michelle, and they asked, Cindy, are those types of services income dependent?
No, we will help anyone as long as they're 60 and older, or if they're 18 and incapacitated. It does not matter about their income. We're there to help our community. Now, certain resources do require, there's a certain income limit. But as far as APS, we'll help anyone that we can.
Thank you so much. We have a question from Magic Frankie in the chat. My 52-year-old daughter is deaf and has a traumatic brain injury. Her needs are unmet by the Community Services Board and have been for years. I have been in touch with the Disability Law Center and Linda Hamrick, Ombudsman Services. I get a lot of sympathy when I explain our situation, but no actual assistance. Where else can I turn?
Well, again, and I hate to speak for anyone else, but we have a new service that's in our community. It's the brain injury services. And anytime that someone has like a stroke or a brain injury of any sort, they will help them. So maybe you can look in your area for brain traumatic injury services, and I can try to find that number while other questions are being asked, and I'll try to give that to you.
And I will echo what Cindy said, which is if this individual happens to be in the Charlottesville, Albemarle, Central Virginia area, Bridgeline does the same with people. They're wonderful advocates for those with traumatic brain injuries. And I can't quite tell from the question if this individual is living at home, which changes it. If this individual is, her daughter, that is not living.
Oh,
I think Tamar just left.
okay. I will just add, while I'm sure
Oh, there
Tamar
we go. There she got back. That was weird. Everything okay?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I just went away, but sorry, everybody. If the daughter is in assisted living or nursing home or something, please reach out to the long-term care ombudsman. And if you already have and didn't get assistance, I am so sorry. Keep reaching out. Call me. We'll see what we can do. But I don't know, as far as the Community Services Board, that's a really good question. And I will defer to anyone else on the panel who knows ways of when you're not having successful support from that group, because I don't know the answer to that.
Well, I will add, and I'm not sure if this is a resource that's already been tried too, through the Department for Aging and Rehabilitative Services. We do have a brain injury division, and so that may be a resource as well. And I can certainly help get that. Okay, she lives in her own home. Okay.
Please, your local Department of Social Services. We know a lot of resources that most people in the area do not know. So reach out to APS and just ask them for help. And if they have it, they'll give it to you.
Yeah, okay.
All right, we'll give another second to see if any questions pop up. If not, I have a few, if that would be okay. Okay. Well, a question for you all is, how do your organizations work together, or more specifically, how do each of your roles interact with one another?
I'll start. We work, Disability Law Center of Virginia, me specifically, works a lot with the local long-term care ombudsman. If I get a call or a complaint about an assisted living or a nursing home, I will, with the person's permission, put them in touch with their local ombudsman. If someone calls us because they've gotten a notice from a nursing home that they're going to be involuntarily discharged, again, I will refer them to the local ombudsman to assist with that. With the discharges from the nursing homes, I often will also recommend that if the nursing home is going to discharge them involuntarily and it's not safe, that they call APS about that closer to the discharge date. I do a lot of referrals to Linda Hamrick's group when people are having different issues with their Medicaid managed care program. And sometimes it's just wanting the person to be able to work with the care coordinator from their managed care company. A lot of times people don't realize that there is a care coordinator there that is able to assist them. So we do a lot of referrals to Linda Hamrick and her program, and she also does referrals to us. Same with the ombudsman. And I'll turn it over to the next person.
Well, you summarized that so nicely, Carol, that I can just segue in for a moment. When I was referencing earlier about appeals and moving through that process, and especially when it's leaving a managed care organization, for instance, and going to a DMAS appeal, we will let individuals know about Disability Law Center and how they might get either some suggestions and guidance, or sometimes, again, depending on resources available, some actual representation during their state fair hearing. As far as our ombudsman, we are one big program with distinct roles, as you've heard today, and certainly the ombudsman refer to us with problems that they're encountering that the managed care organization should help with. And some of that for instance, might be transportation, or someone is seeking to transition from a facility back into the community. And that would necessitate having a transition coordinator from the health plan, for example. And likewise, we're often referring to the local ombudsman because, as Tamar was saying, people have questions about just the local facilities, planning for the future, understanding how their family member can have the help of an ombudsman and who that might be, and so forth. And then certainly with departments of social services, APS, and so forth, Cindy explained, and I'll reiterate that sometimes we're saying to people, you can call APS and get advice and assistance. That doesn't mean that just because you call, something is immediately going to change or immediately going to happen that you are, afraid of losing control over. And so trying to encourage the understanding of the resources, and certainly there are times when we may need to make a more direct referral.
Okay, I'm going.
Sorry, Cindy.
Yes, I'm Cindy. And this is for the lady that needed the brain injury services number. I've got the main number from Roanoke of 540-1200, and then there's a toll-free number of 866-720-1008. And the way I work with these ladies is when I get an investigation of a facility, the ombudsman, my local ombudsman, we go together to start the investigation or through the whole entire investigation and in the findings. And then when I'm done with my investigations, I send everything to the Division of Law Center, licensing, the Board of Professions, or local ombudsman. She gets the report even though she's with me. And of course, the Medicaid fraud.
And I was just going to say, as you've been hearing, we work so closely together that if people are listening and thinking, okay, I've heard what everyone does, but I'm not sure who I should reach out to first or whatever. And the answer is you may end up reaching out to all four of our organizations within one, instance, but it doesn't really matter which of us you call necessarily first, because we all work together so much that we will guide you to the best suited resource for you at that time. And it may be that, like I said, maybe 2, 3, 4 of us are all working on different pieces of this problem that you have. But never let the fact that you're not sure which of us to reach out for stop you from reaching out, because if you get in touch with one of these programs, we will make sure that you get to the best suited for your issue.
All right, thank you all so much for those answers. I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat at the moment. I think my last question you all have already answered beautifully in your responses, but it was just, do you have any other advice or any resources for someone trying to navigate seeking services and supports for themselves or a family member? So some of which you already answered, but if anything that you haven't shared.
If you have any question at all, just call your local Department of Social Services and we will direct you. Like Tamara said, she's wonderful at saying things. I'm not, but she is. But we will direct you on the right way, because we want everyone to be safe, to live the best they can, and we will help them to get anything that would help them. And if we can't, we'll give them to the agency that can.
Well said, Cindy and Tamar. And I will just add that because there are there are so many different factors at times that can enter into situations. That is one of the chief things that we wanted you to hear this morning, is that there is a broad support network out there. And so I think we just encourage you to know that questions are good. Questions are empowering. And so finding, just contacting, as we're saying, any one of us, and to further seek assistance and resources, because again, there are many avenues and all of them aren't represented, of course, on this call either. And so, but each of us are aware of other types of resources that may help. So we just encourage you to know that there is a good support network that, we are willing and ready to help.
Thank you
And
all so much. Oh, did you have a response, Carol?
I was just gonna say, we're gonna turn it over to Caitlin, but I think what Cindy said and Tamar said, and then with finally what Linda said, I think that's a great way for us to end. We've left up the screen that has the contact information for all of our agencies. That is on the screen, and then the program, if there's people who were not able to attend our session or attended a different session, the information will be available, it's my understanding, in a month or two. And I'll turn it over to Caitlin.
Thank you all so much, and thank you to our speakers for such an informative and thorough presentation of all the services available to support elders and people with disabilities. So if we have no more questions, thank you for joining the session today, and we hope to see you in the last two sections of the summit later today.